Well, I mean, the debate on aid has been there for close to half a century, to be frank with you. President Nana Akufo-Addo is not saying anything new. You can call it development assistance. The whole debate about development assistance actually has formed the basis of colonization. After colonization, the assistance to developing countries to develop their infrastructure has been based on the notion of aiding those countries. And how do you aid? By providing financial assistance, by providing technical assistance, institutional support, and etc. There's the other dimension of the aid debate, which is aid versus trade. You know, how will rather helping developing countries, opening up the markets of developed economies to the products of developing countries, enhancing exchange, rather contribute more to the economic development of those countries relative to handing them aid. So there's also that dimension of the debate. So we can go on and on and on. But as we speak, after 2013, official development assistance from the rich North American and European countries totaled about 136 billion United States dollars from these countries to developing countries across the world, not just Africa. But sub-Saharan Africa is one of those countries that has been a major candidate in terms of development assistance. Now, there are those who are for aid, there are those who are against aid. Both of them, in my opinion, have some merit in their positions. If you consider the history of the exploitation of developing countries by developed countries and the wealth that has been built over the years in developed countries, there is a case for saying that they must transfer some of that money to developing countries to help them fast-track the process of development to meet the basic needs of their people. We can't allow them to keep all that money, starting from slavery to colonialism and how, a dependent economy was structured so that natural resources were moved from here to go to the metropolis to facilitate the development of the metropolis, how they killed deliberately certain industries that were emerging so that they can boost their own industries and turn us into producers of raw materials for their own industrialization and sending us back and truncating our process of development. The argument is that today we can't just sit by and allow them to enjoy all that money and say that we don't want aid. We must take the aid. And in fact, the argument is that the aid must increase. As we speak, the European target, for the UN set a quota that the aid, that's official development assistance, gross national income ratio should be at least 0.7% for the developed countries. We must fight for that to increase. Should it be more than 0.7% of their national income? There's a group that is against aid, and their argument is that, look, aid hasn't really helped developing countries. And in fact, in most of the cases, aid has gone to enrich the political elite in developing countries because they take the money, they squander it. It doesn't trickle down to the sectors where, like you mentioned, education and healthcare and critical infrastructure that should help in the development. So they think that aid should not even continue. They should end it. So there's that debate. Now let's get to the specifics of President Nana Akufo-Addo. He's saying all the right things, and I'll commend him for saying them. And like my senior Kukubaku has said, he's not the first to say them. He's saying what Nkrumah said. So if you can imagine the time from Nkrumah to date, I'm sure when you go to Achampong and he talks about taking over the commanding heights of the economy, he was basically saying the same thing. And when you go to Rawlings and his revolution and the rhetoric of the left at the beginning of the revolution, they were all saying the same thing. The question is practically, what should we do? I have given some practical proposals. I have said that by President Nana Akufo-Addo's own calculation, if you take the 2018 budget, foreign component in terms of the finance of our budget is about 4.7 billion. 4.7 billion. Just last year, he says when he limited sole sourcing by just 50% thereabout, he was able to save 800 million Ghana cedis. And I say, if you abolish sole sourcing altogether, you can save 2 billion. Already half of foreign finance component of your budget is being addressed. Now, let's get to the exploitation of our natural resources, the mining companies. Let's go back and look at the negotiation, how that whole sector is managed, how they determine the cost of production, which they then extract, and then what is left is the basis of sharing, between them and the government of Ghana. Who is watching how much they say they spent? So let's go back to those sectors. Let's take something like the ECG concession that we're discussing, where some people are just going to come here and help us fix meters in our homes and read the meters and then bill and do some minimal investment in the infrastructure for distribution, which was already in existence. They just need to retool it, and they're going to take a certain percentage, because that's what the concession is all about. Cut that. If they want to assist us, let them help us with the technical assistance to retool ECG. If you go around checking all these leakages like my brother is saying, trust me, whatever we're getting as the official development assistance today, in 2 years' time, we could get that by just plucking leakage in almost every sector of our country. And as for the aid, in addition to plucking and saving, we must take the aid from the developed countries, because we have contributed to the development of those economies, and we must benefit.
Okay, I may return to you, but Clara, the president spoke about private sector development.
For me, I believe that Ghana Beyond Aid is achievable. What we need to achieve is commitment to that. And in addition to the commitment, of course, there are certain adjustments we have to even change, particularly in our thinking. Mm-hmm. Now, we have to remember, I've always said that it's interesting how we have come to believe that we are people who are not capable of so many things. We seem to have forgotten where we've come from. We come from a stock. Our ancestors were people who survived and thrived without aid. They traded. They were successful. They were great people. Then along the line, of course, we had that interrupted because of the issues of colonialism and slavery. And once again, they demonstrated capability when they embarked on that struggle for independence. After independence, we seem to have been on course, because I think the Ghanaian people had a clear vision of what they wanted. And if you look at the vision they believed they were capable of, they didn't intend to live on aid. There wasn't any part in the struggle for those who wanted independence for the reason that they wanted independence so that they can be beggars. They wanted independence so that they could be in charge of their life and live in prosperity. And if you trace it into even the 1992 Constitution, that vision is very clear. So we come from a stock of people who were clear exactly what they wanted. The problem is that along the line, we lost focus. I think at some point we just completely lost focus, and we seem to have started doing a completely different thing altogether. So yes, it is capable, but we have to revisit some of our values. We will, like Kweku said, you have to keep everybody on board. There are ways and policies of influencing behavior. So we will have to identify the particular values that we probably have that inhibits our growth, and then we would have to adopt particular values that particular policies aimed at redefining those values or changing those values and all of this. So in short, what we need now is to regain that focus. And from what the president is saying, you can see that there is, at least from the speech, there is some commitment. If we keep to it and we regain that focus, I believe that we can achieve a Ghana without aid. The work, of course, the work is enormous.
How is it affected by the skepticism that you read around? The
skepticism is understandable because, of course, over the years we have made statements of here and there, and we haven't lived up to the statements. The effect is that now when you say something, we are skeptical. I think that is understandable if you also know the history that we have come from. So it's understandable that people are skeptical. But what we really need, fortunately, the president is in the saddle. What we really need, I believe, if he starts taking the action and then he starts taking the relevant steps that we need. As for hearing something like we need to add value, we've been hearing this forever. Anytime, even personally, anytime I hear we need to add value, like, yeah, right, yes, we know. Let's just add it. So it is time for us to now start reporting on the steps that we have taken. It is no longer time for us to keep talking, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to do. It is time for us to start hearing that we did A, and this is the result of what we did. We think it has achieved or it has not achieved. That is one. And I think the key thing we need to start telling ourselves is to stop telling ourselves the lies we've told ourselves for a long time. The lies that we are poor, the lies that we are inept, and the lies that we cannot. We can. Our only problem is that we haven't actually believed in ourselves enough. So where we have gotten to is to believe in ourselves enough and admit what is not working and work at it. Education, the free SHS, is brilliant. In spite of the issues that we will have, we keep working at it. The free SHS has brought access. Now we also need to talk about quality. What is the curricula that we have for our students? What kind of training are we giving them? Are we giving them the particular training that in a global market today they could not just succeed in Ghana, but they could go out in the world and dominate? Or are we giving them the kind of training that is going to make employing them difficult? Because sometimes the issue is not really about lack of jobs. The issue is about employability. Do the people that we produce through our academic system, can we just take them and they will fit into the positions and the type of economy that we want to create? So our education we have to look at. Apart from that, we also have to look at training. We have a lot of youth. If you look at the youth, for example, although we have always had more or less ad hoc policies directed at the youth, I haven't seen a consistent, deliberate policy or plan targeted at maximizing the potential that the youth have. If you go out into our problem, I always say the youth, just go out into the Ghanaian population and the enormous talent you see. There is so much potential. And just like the way we waste other resources, it's the same way we waste the resources, the potential that we have in the youth. A lot of the things that we talk about, there are so many things the Ghanaian youth can do. The proper thing we need to do is how to harness that, how to channel it, and how to train them to survive in the global world. We talk about ICT. And of course, the joke somebody made, that if you look at the way we are training our people in ICT, is to make them consumers, not innovators. So we cannot train people to live and behave like consumers and expect them to be innovators. If we want to train innovators, we must be deliberate about it. So it is not likely that you can be teaching a child on the blackboard what a computer does and expect that child to grow up to be somebody who can innovate.
There are people who get into government or they get into public office, and they are the ones who are supposed to give the critical support for the realization of this. But there's a good number of them who go there for what they can benefit personally and privately. How's it going to get all of these people?
It's part of the mindset that must change. That's why I think the president has to focus on the mindset. I don't think if we don't have an attitudinal change.
In the speech.
Yes. If we do not have an attitudinal change, trust me, we are not going to reach far with this Ghana Beyond Aid. It will become a slogan. So we have to target the attitudinal change. Why do people go into public service and behave that? Because we treat public service like the spoils of war. That's it. What I talked about earlier on. There is the sense of entitlement. I am occupying this position because I know A and I know B and I know C and they have my back covered. It doesn't matter what I do. So once I believe, because I have these connections is the reason why I'm here, I know they have my back covered. Very few people, like I said earlier on, would put a lot of effort into it. If you look at this, the kind of values we run will determine the kind of output that we get. Meritocracy, every society that has made it, it has been on the back of meritocracy. The reason being that meritocracy pushes us to give of our best. You need to keep working hard. And because you need to keep working hard, you will improve on yourself. You will be professional. And you will give off your best. So the entire society gains at the end of the day.
What would you say to people like, Mahama Ayarega has been positive about this, except that he feels you can't win yourself out of aid or because we have a right to it. People in his party, the opposition, for example, you hear them acting critical and being doubtful. How can we get because you need the entire nation around such a goal. How can we get over
it can
this?
be done. Like I said, of course, I can't say that in the few minutes.
Because
but
when they were in government,
yes,
the now in government, which was in opposition, didn't believe anything they were trying to champion. Yes. So they would do the same. How does this scuttle the goal?
No, if you target the attitudinal change well, you can reach out to people.
Okay.
Because as a nation, I always come back, we have to have national values. We have to have certain core values that we all congregate